On the desolate, wind-swept outskirts of a village stands Thomas. He's covered in ragged linens, wandering as an absolute outcast. His skin is chalky, peeling, and raw. He lives with involuntary tremors, his hands shaking constantly as he grips a small wooden clapper. By law, he must shout "unclean" at anyone crossing his path. The disease carries a dual penalty. It is a highly contagious health risk, and it guarantees a social death sentence. He is entirely cut off from his community. When a crowd of travelers approaches on the road to Capernaum, their reaction is pure terror. Thomas breaks protocol. He steps directly into the middle of the road and falls to his knees in the dust in front of Jesus. The disciples immediately stiffen. They know the strict religious rules. The safe, holy way for a rabbi to handle a leper is to speak a few words of healing from a long distance. Instead, Jesus reaches out and presses his bare hand firmly against the raw, diseased skin of the man's shoulder. He tells him, "I am willing, be clean." The gray, dead skin instantly flushes with vibrant color. But while the physical disease vanishes, the action leaves a mark. Willingly touching an unclean person makes a rabbi unclean by the letter of the law, setting a highly visible, risky precedent. These are the archaeological foundations of Capernaum. It's here, later that day, where the atmosphere shifts to a claustrophobic heat. Jesus is teaching inside a packed, standing-room-only house. Sitting rigidly in the front row are the Pharisees and teachers of the law. Their arms are crossed. They haven't come as students eager to listen. They are here as auditors, waiting for a mistake. This scroll shows the dense columns of Hebrew text that make up the laws these scholars are sworn to protect. To them, any deviation from these ancient rules threatens their entire way of life. Suddenly, a heavy thud echoes from above. Dirt falls onto the shoulders of the scholars as thatch and mud are violently ripped away from the ceiling. Light pours in as four sweaty, determined men lower their paralyzed friend, Eli, down into the room on a pallet. The crowd falls totally silent. They fully expect Jesus to perform another standard physical healing. Jesus completely ignores Eli's thin, useless limbs. He looks at the man on the mat, addresses his spiritual state, and says, "Son, your sins are forgiven." The temperature in the room plummets. To the religious elite, this shatters a theological absolute. They immediately whisper that this is blasphemy, operating on the strict doctrine that only God has the authority to forgive sins. Jesus reads their thoughts and doesn't wait for them to speak up. He looks directly at the scholars and asks a cutting question. Which is easier to say, "Your sins are forgiven," or "Get up and walk"? He turns back to Eli and commands him to stand. The man's toes twitch, his calves flex, and he bolts upright. He grabs his heavy wool mat and pushes his way laughing through the stunned scholars. The scholars are left in a trap of their own making. They cannot deny the man standing before them, yet they cannot accept the words that got him there. To acknowledge the miracle is to acknowledge the authority that claimed to forgive the sin. As Eli walks out, the crowded house erupts into cheers, but the Pharisees exit in complete silence, forming a tight, chilling knot outside the door. They watch from a distance. One of them pulls out a piece of parchment and quietly begins to document a formal case against him. Inside, while the disciples celebrate, Jesus is subdued. He looks down at the hand that touched the leper. While Peter sees a victory, Jesus watches the Pharisees walk toward the synagogue. He turns to Simon and tells him that the lines are being drawn and that from here on, they must keep their eyes open. Every touch of a leper and every word of forgiveness is a direct challenge to the rules that held this society together. This isn't just about healing the sick. It's a confrontation with the gatekeepers of the faith. He is conducting a highly targeted rescue operation. He reaches straight for the diseased, the broken, and the outcasts, completely bypassing the scholars who believe they are already clean. And those boundaries are about to be pushed even further. Next episode, he calls a despised tax collector named Levi to join him and sits down for a scandalous dinner with sinners.